Good morning and welcome. This is Scott Conway, PhD, JD, and this is a follow-up to the 100-day sprint 1 and 2. When we were talking about, the 100-day sprint, talking about what we do next, how we set the plan, what we do, and this is a check-in. One of my personal pet peeves is people who only talk about successes, they never talk about failures. The people who talk about prayers that were answered, but not prayers that weren't answered. People who will discuss stories and the parts of stories that make the story look really, really good, but without giving you the real information. So we're done with the 100-day sprint as of a couple of weeks ago. This is the first chance I've had to get to a debrief, and we're going to go over my 100-day sprint just on my personal basis, and later on we'll be discussing how or if anyone else did what they wanted to do. But we're going to talk about the 100-day sprint, where I succeeded, where I failed, what I did right, what I did wrong, what I changed, and take a look. Now for this one, because I'm using my paper, I'm actually going to have to wear my reading glasses. So for those of you who aren't used to seeing me in reading glasses, I am wearing my glasses for reading. Okay, I called my list BAIT, standing for B8. The theme was 8 things that started with the letter B. My list was body, brain, blessing, bucks, business, books, Balboa, and beauty. And so it just kind of worked out that way. Some of them, admittedly, I had to tweak a little bit to get them to fit. So on some of the things, for my body list, for my health, one of the things I put on my list is I wanted to get down to 210 pounds. I had gotten to 238 pounds. And I said, okay, this is ridiculous. So for 100 days, I said, I'm going to aim to lose 28 pounds in 100 days. And on that particular one, I made it on March 27th, so I graded myself. And in this one, I gave myself a grade of an A because I hit my mark. I hit my mark early, so I could even give myself an A+. And so as I was aiming for this particular one, I had my target, I had my goals, I had my strategy. I tinkered with my strategy as I went. I modified some of my exercise. I dramatically shifted some of my dietary habits so that I could aim for the 210 pounds. And so I got there at a level. I hit exactly my mark. Then fitness. My fitness goal is listed as drench without modification or break. There's a Beachbody program called PiYo. And so I printed up the PiYo calendar for the workouts. And the workout I wanted to get to was called Drench. The first time Drench shows up in the program, because I ran the program, first off I tried it to see how well I could do it. And I got all the way through Drench with like 10 breaks. I was going through, like, sometimes it seemed like a hard 2 minutes. And I go, okay, gotta have a break. So it took me literally 10 blocks to get all the way through this workout. So that was my testing. Like, all right, the goal is to get through the entire workout with no break and no modification. And so I started the PiYo program right at the beginning, and I ran the full set. Sweat is the first kind of really hard workout that's in there that kind of serves as a standard bearer. And when Drench first came up in week number 4, I didn't make it. I needed 2 breaks in order to get all the way through Drench. So I kept on going. It shows up again in the middle late area of week number 5, and in week 5 I got all the way through that workout without having to take a break. So mission was accomplished. I got fitness Drench without modification or break was done on January 26th, so it only took me about a month. So I gave myself a grade of an A on that one. Then I had a physique goal, 34 waist, subjective appearance, getting back into some of my older pants. And my update here is I'm not sure I'm a 34, but I did lose 2 belt inches. I might have been at 238 pounds at 38 waist as far as pants go. I noticed my 34 pants are still really tight. So I couldn't quite give myself an A on that one. So I gave myself an A- though because I hit my weight goals. I can get into them. I did lose belt notches, but they're still too tight for them to be my regular pants. So I kind of got to where I wanted to be. Not totally. I hit my weight targets. I didn't produce the inches targets I was hoping it was going to produce. And rather than keep on pushing the weight and say, okay, how many more pounds do I have to lose to lose another inch? I said, look, you know, I'm satisfied with that. Gave myself an A- on that. Now, these physical goals turn out to be some of my easier ones. The subjective part of the appearance is being satisfied with how I look in the mirror after 100 days. And I gave myself an A- on that because I'm happy enough, but I'm not even sure I want to lose more weight. I mean, 210 is pretty good. I decided to stay at 210 to the end of the 100-day sprint. I might decide to aim down for 200, maybe for the summer, and maybe for later on in the year, but I'm happy with that. Then I have a list here of mastery, also in the body section. And this is doing every single thing in my martial arts 4 times. And 2 sets of techniques that I was really fuzzy on, throw techniques and lock techniques, and to do those 50 times each. Now, for some of these things is where I get to my checklist. And so I built a checklist, and I worked this through on a daily list. And so I had throw techniques and lock techniques. Every other day I would do one or the other. Sometimes I would pre-purchase it. I would do 2 of them in one day, and then, okay, so that counts as for today and tomorrow. And from time to time, I would have to catch up when I was behind. And so as I worked through, rather than having to strictly adhere to no matter what's going on in my day, no matter if I have to go up to Orange County for court, no matter if I'm spending the day with my mother helping her prep her house for moving, I have to do it exactly everything every single day, that I wasn't that rigid. Going into it to start with, I already had pre-decided I will allow myself to buy forward and to catch up backwards. And by allowing myself to do both of those, it was theoretically possible for me to even have 2 days in a row completely off. If I know that's going to happen, that I could double up on one day, so now pre-purchase the next day, and then I could catch up on the 3rd day so that I buy back the day that I missed. I didn't ever actually need to do that, and I never needed to even do a buy forward or buy back on the entire list. But there were some things where I was buying forward or buying back on 1 or 2 or more items on the list, and so that was one of them. And then you'll notice I had my whole list of karate, and then the Kobujitsu, which is our weapon art, of all of the bow material or our long weapon material, all of our sword material, all of our stick and knife material. And then I had my Jiu-Jitsu all trimester material, my Jiu-Jitsu even U material, my Jiu-Jitsu odd U material, and all these going down and then breaking out Kempo gave me a 13-day stretch to do every single thing spread out over 13 days. Sometimes I would buy forward, sometimes I would catch up, but for the most part, the first 2 weeks of the month I was spent doing everything on my list. On my physical list as I was doing my physical work. As I began in January, I had stretch, pull-ups, body pops, legs, chest, back, arms, core, and taking a walk around the block. And the block was basically get out, get some fresh air, go for a walk. Around the block here is roughly 3/4 of a mile. And so if I'm off somewhere else, if I'm doing Balboa Park, if I'm doing Safari Park, if I'm doing the zoo, that would count as the block. The point is to get out and go for a walk, half a mile, whatever it's going to be, but to get in a significant amount of outdoor time where I can be outside, I can be breathing fresh air, and I can be moving my body. So that was the list. Now, as I was going through in January, I began to think, you know, this isn't really working for me. Body pops was on my list, but curiously enough, body pops turned out to be really easy for me. And so I decided I was going to drop body pops off of the list. And then as I went through later, as I dropped out body pops, I put in handstand. And I decided that instead of doing something that my body could already do really, really, really easily, that I didn't feel was helping me that much, that bracing up in a handstand would be helpful. It would help work my shoulders. I used to be able to do handstand push-ups. Can't do those right now. But to be able to get the blood flow to my brain and to be able to work on my hand balance again and to see if I could gently work my way toward a handstand push-up perhaps eventually. And when I first started, I had to lock out the arms and I bent them a little bit. That's it. I was falling down. Now I can kind of about halfway down and press back up, and I can do that for reps now. But that was a replacement from the beginning of January to the second half of January. So that's part of the test phase. Where I'm doing this and going, okay, I kind of like most of it. This thing, I really don't need this in here. Let me get rid of this thing and let me put something else in instead. And then as I was going to get into February, now it says stretch, pull-ups, handstand, bridge. And so now I decided, and it's like, you know what I think I'm missing as I'm doing my handstand, so I'm inverted, is I'm missing doing my bridging for my back flexibility, bending back, and for my neck flexibility, and trying to get my neck doing what I want my neck doing, and my torso being able to be more flexible to do what I want it to do, and so I added the bridge in there. So this is part of the tinkering and the testing. So as I was going through, at the end of every sheet, which, you know, my sheets were 14 to 16 days, I would take a look before I printed out my next sheet and decide, am I satisfied with the list as it exists? And in particular for the whole month of January, so think about this, almost a third of my time, I'm still tinkering and testing. Adding stuff in, taking stuff out, changing what I'm doing, changing how I'm doing it. And so this is part of building into a system, a method of success. Now, one of the examples of me doing this very, very poorly comes many years ago. When I turned 46 years old, I was finally older than my father lived to. My father died when he was 45. So when I turned 46, that was a big deal. And so as part of the big deal of turning 46, we did a number of things. And one of the things I did as an affirmation of life, as an affirmation of strength, as an affirmation of just physical ability and health and fitness, we have this thing called a conditioning kata. And the conditioning kata is a really hard, roughly 40-minute routine that it's work. And I decided I'm going to do 46 conditioning katas in 46 days. Every day I'm going to do this for 46 days, and that was my commitment. Why was that my commitment? Because that was my commitment. I said so. I was going to do it. And that's what I decided going in, turning 46. As I got into it, the first few days are really hard. The body's not fully recovered on day 2. And day 3, I'm making it do it again. And so now I'm 3 workouts in. But now my body starts to feel a little stronger. About a week in, I'm feeling, hey, I can do this. This is going to be good. As I worked my way toward the end, as I'm hitting like about the 30-ish day mark, somewhere in that range, I'm beginning to realize this is really overtraining. I mean, my knees are hurting, my body is aching in ways it's really not supposed to. And as I realized this is overtraining for the sake of my body, I really can't be doing this. But I committed to 46 days. I can overtrain for another couple of weeks and then give my body time to recover. And I decided to do that because I said I was doing 46 days. I didn't build in a test phase. I didn't build in a break. I didn't build into my commitment any slot where I'm allowed to take a day off even. If I had said, 46 times in the next 60 days, then that would have given me a cushion. And I could have shuffled some things around. I could have had a day off here or there, given my body a couple of days to recover every once in a while. And here was the big one. So within that 46-day window, we took the family to Disneyland. And at Disneyland, we decided to go up there the night before, spend the night, get to the park when it opened, stay at the park until it closed. So we're up at Disneyland. I still have to do this conditioning kata. Why? Because it's in the 46-day window. Why am I still doing it? Because I said I was going to do it. I didn't build in the test. I didn't build in a break. I didn't build in a spot where I could take a day off because I'm at Disneyland all day. So I'm up at 5 in the morning, having driven late last night, spent the night, got less than 5 hours of sleep. I'm up in the morning so I can do this conditioning kata and then get a shower before breakfast, and then we can get in there when the park opens. Well, the original plan was we were going to stay until like 8 o'clock or so and then head home. Well, everyone was having so much fun, we stayed until midnight. So I've been up since 5 o'clock in the morning. I opened my day with this really hard conditioning kata, which is so hard on the legs. Oh my gosh. And then I've been walking all day. I've been at Disneyland for 16 hours. And then at the end of the 16 hours, when the parks close and we kind of meandering a little bit after midnight, I do my traditional thing where the family kind of hangs out near the park, and I go running back to the motel to go pick up the car and swing back and pick them up. So I started heading up, jogging up, and I was, okay, my legs just totally are not doing this. So I mostly walked, kind of jogged, mostly walked, and got in the car and came back and got it. And it was such a long, exhausting day for them. All the kids conked out in the car. And my wife, who really can't sleep in cars, even she's dozing. Now, I've been up since 5 a.m. and I have to drive the car. And so I'm driving home. I get home at about 2 o'clock. I've been popping my caffeine pills and having my energy drinks just so I can keep on going. And by the time I finally get to sleep, sometime around 3 o'clock in the morning, I've been running for 22 hours, running my body, my legs in particular, hard. I was so fatigued and exhausted, and the next day I get to do another conditioning kata. So I learned from that experience to build in kind of this test time, where you can give yourself time to kind of see how it's going, and build into the commitment the flexibility. Some people forget to do that. Now, here's the two things that happen. Sometimes people get so fixated, it has to be done exactly this way. If it's not exactly this way, I'm a total failure. And when stuff like that happens, you're setting yourself up not only for not succeeding at what you're trying to do, you set yourself up for feeling like a total failure. If you do, and what I did is I made the commitment. Now I'm going to stick to the commitment because I made the commitment. I said I would, I will. Now I do this for a number of reasons. One of the reasons I do that is so that people know if I say it, I will do it. If I tell you something's handled, it's handled. If I tell you I'm going to get it done, I'm going to get it done. And that's part of the oasis thing. It's so people can go, and they can relax when they know that I've said something. I don't want people to say, well, I know he said he was going to do that, but I don't know if he's going to do that. And sometimes in kind of the business coaching area and the self-help area, I get some pushback on that because I'll phrase something in a way that gives me an out. So, no, you have to commit. You have to say it like you're going to do it. I said, but I don't know I'm going to do it. It's like, well, you're never going to make it. You can't even say it. So, but if I say it and then I don't do it, then I'm teaching my heart and my mind to not trust the words that come out of my mouth. And my heart and my mind need to know I mean what I say. And I do what I say I will do, which is why I did 46 conditioning katas in 46 days, even though I realized I'm getting through. This is getting ridiculous. This is overtraining, but I'm sticking to it because I said I would. But I learned, build in breaks, build in flexibility, build in the buy forwards, build in the buy backs, so that if I'm over at Disneyland again, I don't have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do a conditioning kata and then spend 16 hours in the park after a conditioning kata. To build into the system places where you can take a day off here, a day off there. On my diet during this 100-day sprint, I always gave myself 1 day of the week off. 1 day of the week where I could eat as much of anything as I might possibly want. And as I'm working through this time, what I could possibly want, it shifts because, you don't feel the need to gorge yourself as much because your body's been much cleaner during the time. But it gave me the opportunity to go to buffets. It gave me the opportunity to have a date at Cheesecake Factory and have a meal and have cheesecake afterwards. Because I built in flexibility into the dietary system. That I didn't have to do it 100%, 7 days a week, all the time. That I had to do it 6 days a week, not 7, and I even built in flexibility for special occasions. Specifically because I would typically, in my day-to-day life, have maybe a date in a week, more typically a date in a couple of weeks, and I might see my mother maybe once. And when I see my mother, sometimes we'll go to a Chinese buffet, sometimes we'll go to Soup Plantation, sometimes we'll go out someplace else. And so when I'm out with my mother, I don't want to have to scrimp and not eat stuff when I'm out with my mom. And when I'm out on a date, I don't want my date to feel like, I know we're at Cheesecake Factory, but he's not having cheesecake, I shouldn't have cheesecake. Because I feel that kind of diminishes the date. And so I built in that kind of flexibility. But when I knew it was coming up more than one time in a week, I would prepay it with extra exercise beforehand. Not that, I'll work out later and burn the calories. But I would prepay it by fasting beforehand so that I'm buying my calories in a dietary way, and so I'm doing a liquid fast with liquid nutrition. I had my Shakeology, part of the whole Beachbody Paleo thing. I had the Shakeology. I would skip an extra meal, and I would just have the shake beforehand. So when I go out to a really nice meal, and I'm going to be having dessert, that I haven't been consuming calories all day. In fact, I just did this yesterday. Yesterday I was teaching at a seminar. I opened my day with my Shakeology for breakfast. I had Shakeology for lunch. And so all I'd had during the day was 2 shakes as far as nutrition. I hadn't eaten anything solid because I knew that night I was going out to a really cool pizza place. And we went out to a place called North Park, and there was this pizza joint called Berkeley Pizza, and the pizzas are super, super thick. I think that's called Chicago style. And this really deep dish, really high-fat, high-calorie pizzas, but that was the only thing I ate all day. Now, I had good nutrition earlier in the day, but then that let me be able to indulge in a really nice pizza dinner with my new friends and acquaintances I was just meeting, and not have to kind of pass on a bunch of stuff because I pre-purchased those. So if you look at that as a meal, oh, that was probably way too many calories for a meal. And if I had a regular breakfast and a regular lunch, and then you pile that on, oh, that would have been excessive calories on the day. But having had the nutrition shake for breakfast, the nutrition shake for lunch, and having that as the only solid food of the day, first off, it helped me eat less because my stomach was a bit smaller, and it would feel too heavy if I ate too much. And I was able to have 3 slices of this awesome pizza, where calorie-wise, 1 slice and then stop if it was just the one meal, or if it was just one in a regular day of meals, probably would have been enough. But I could have 3. Why? Because I had pre-purchased those calories. So that's part of how I was building the physical part. Now, when you're buying forward and buying back on physical things, there's limitations to where that's useful. Because I can't decide, well, I'm going to work out on Sunday all afternoon, and that's going to be my workouts for the entire week. The body doesn't really do that very well. You got about a 3-day window. And so the buying forward one day and buying back one day would allow me to have 2 days off if I needed it, and I ended up not ever needing the 2 days off. But there were some spots where I needed half of the list off. And it bought me the ability to do that. So whenever you're doing any kind of planning, any kind of scheduling, build in your test time, where you give yourself the opportunity to see how well it's working. To see if there's some stuff you need to take out of the list. Maybe because it's a lot harder than you thought it was. Maybe because you find out that it's not really all that hard, but it's taking up too much time. You need a more time-effective way. Or sometimes it's too context-specific. And give yourself a little flexibility in what defines that. So imagine if I was so committed, it has to be the block. It has to be this block. I have to come here and walk around this block, or it doesn't count. And then I spent all day at Balboa Park. I've been wandering around all day, or all day at Legoland, wandering around all day, or the safari park, or the zoo. And so I put in like miles walking, but I'm going, oh no, it has to be this block. Then I'm setting myself up for failure. Because I'm saying I have to, no matter what, get to that place and walk that block. And if anything stops me from getting to that place and walking that block, that gets to be a problem. And I built in my rain modification. And so by just grabbing the umbrella, and instead of going around the entire block, I would go from corner down to corner, and then back, and then I would go from corner up to corner, and then back. And so that way I stay close, so if the rain starts just gushing down, I'm not that far away. The distance is still the block distance. And one time when it was pouring down rain, instead I walked on the walkway that has mostly an overhang, and I just did that back and forth 4 times. And that was about the same amount of distance, and I could do that when it was cold and pouring down rain. And so you look for the modifications, and you build that into your system. You allow yourself to not have to be 100%. You allow room for what if you get sick? What if you get hurt? What if you get pulled out of your schedule? What's the plan if you get pulled out of your schedule? Do you just pick up where you left off? That could be one plan. Do you just drop stuff and then catch up on the important parts? That could be a plan. Do you just pick up on the schedule where the schedule would be had you done it. That could be a plan. And so like if I'm using the PiYo as an example, I could be going through this particular workout and I get to sweat, but I don't have the Thursday and I don't have the time. I'm spending the whole day with my mother. I'm helping her get ready to move. Can't do it on Thursday. Well, I can take my rest day. Do it on my rest day. And then let Thursday be my rest day instead of Friday be my rest day. Or if I'm coming through and I get late, like I could do both defined lower body and defined upper body all in one day on something. Or I could decide, you know what, if I miss a day, that's okay. I'm just going to skip the day. If I miss that Thursday, that's fine. I'm just going to skip sweat. And I'm going to pick it up on Saturday when my next workout is scheduled. You can decide. But it helps if you decide beforehand. Because if you don't decide beforehand, a lot of times you end up kind of in this trap, because the trap sets you up where like you have this turmoil about it because you don't have it planned. You don't have a system already in place to accommodate these kind of things. Now, my general thing typically is if I miss one day, I'll catch up. If I missed a couple of days, what I would do is I drop rest days first, I drop easy workouts second, and I want to keep the hard workouts. And that's what I do. Some people will say, okay, I'm just going to stop right here while I'm sick or busy or whatever, and then I'm going to pick up here later on. And they'll retool their whole schedule. Or they'll just decide, well, I'm just going to stop, I'll start over some other time. That could be the plan too. It's useful to figure that out beforehand, so it's part of the commitment. That I learned from my 46 conditioning katas in 46 days, build in flexibility in your commitment, because I like to keep my commitments. So if I tell you I'm going to do something, I want to do it. If I tell myself I'm going to do something, I want me to believe me. Now, I heard a speaker say something one time, and he's not a Christian, he's more New Age spiritualist, and so he refers to God as higher power. And one of the things he says is if you don't do what you say you will do, you're telling higher power to not trust you. If you don't do what you say you will do, you're telling God, basically, don't bother to call me to stuff because you can't even trust me to do what I say I'm going to do. Forget trusting me to do what you tell me to do. And so this is huge. This is part of self-leadership. And the idea of self-leadership is if I don't do what I think I should do, figuring that I agree with me that this is what I should do, why should you do what I tell you to do, whether you agree with me or not? And so I need to trust my own leadership, which means I need to figure out how to lead me well. And this helps me be a better leader for other people. Because as I realize for myself, I have to build in this flexibility. For myself, I have to build in this ability to buy forward and buy back. I have to build in the ability to tinker with plans. I have to build in the ability to not have to do it perfect. Then certainly with you, I need to not expect you to do something perfectly. I need to have you have the ability to tinker. I need you to have the ability to see how it's going, to buy forward, to buy back, to modify on the fly when something comes up. And that will help me make a better leader for other people as I learn how to be a better leader for myself. And then likewise, if you're leading me, and I'm supposed to be following you, and I can't even follow me, I'm probably going to have some trouble following you too. Because if you're telling me that I need to do something, and I can't even do what I agree I should do, how well am I going to do what you want me to do? And so as a follower, being a good self-leader is critical. So that way I need less supervision, less help, less oversight. You can more and more give me problems to solve rather than give me specific direction on exact details of exactly what has to be done. And then we can also discover what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses. If I'm a good self-leader, and so I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at. I know what I can get done, I know what I can't get done. And I have a good self-assessment because I've had to build in this flexibility for myself. If I realize what I'm being asked to do is going to tighten things up beyond what I think I can consistently keep up with, I can know that and I can tell my leader. I was listening to Stephen Covey was talking about how he had this project and he had this one guy in his company that was really, really good at these things. And so he went in, he was going to give the project to him. And the guy looked up and said, "Certainly, sir, I'll be happy to do that. Just a moment." And he stands up, closes his door, pulls back a curtain that he has over a chart, and says, "So here's what I've got going on. Which of these would you like me to put off or cancel to put this new thing in?" And so he looked at the list and saw, "Nope, I want all of that stuff to still be done, so I'll go give this one to somebody else." Now, he might have just as easily have looked at it and like, "Okay, I can, let's have Mark take that over, and I want you to do this new project in that spot." But that's because this guy was a great self-leader. He knew what he was doing. He knew what was on his list. He knew how much time it would take. He had it blocked out. He had his flexibility built in. And he knew if I add this one more thing in, I can't reliably get all these other things done or get this new thing done. And so there's going to have to be some shuffling if we're going to do this. And Stephen Covey, as the boss, looked at it. He made his decision like, "Yeah, you stay on that project. I'm going to give this to somebody else." And it's because this guy was the self-leader. If he wasn't a good self-leader, there's a tendency to just say, "Okay." And if you're afraid you're going to be punished, there's a tendency to say, "Okay." And then you can't keep up. Then you end up failing. Then you end up getting in trouble. Then people get upset. And then you get upset. Then you feel like a failure. Why? Because you failed. But why did you fail? Is you didn't build your system right. So all of this stuff, just part, and we're just a body. We're the first thing here. It gets easier because the principles stay the same. So then in my list, I go from body to brain. Oh, I gave myself an A- on getting through everything. It says, "I was originally thinking of making knife techniques the next set, decided to teach lock techniques in this Kempo trimester. It went very well. That let me do a deeper dive on these techniques. For April, I had to advance some skills because I broke it up into 13 pieces and I only had 10 days. But overall, on the quality of my performance, I did everything, but I didn't push it as hard and strong and sharp as I would have liked to for a straight A. I did a really good job. Gave myself an A- on that one too." Okay, on brain, I had 100 AV credits, 14 books, and 100 plus pages of journal writing. Nailed all of those. On the AV credits, the audio-video credits, that if I'm listening to an audio, that's 1 credit, typically for about an hour. So if an audio is almost 2 hours, that can be 2 credits. Video counts as 2 credits per hour, and live seminars count as 2 credits per hour. So 100 AV credits, gave myself an A on that one because I got clearly over 100 credits. Now that's something else. That doesn't have to be 1 credit a day. If you want to do 8 credits in 1 day, totally can do that. And so when I was driving up to Carlsbad, hour drive up, hour drive back. So I did 2 credits. That I'm listening to an audio on the way up, I switch out my CD, listen to an audio on the way back, and I went up to Carlsbad twice in 4 days. And so I did 2 credits on that Saturday, I did 2 credits on that Monday, and that's pretty common. Sometimes I'll take time off and I'll put in a video and I'll watch the video. And some of the stuff that I'm doing, I would pre-watch videos I was going to be using for church. And then I do a short report on that. And so watching a 1-hour video is 2 credits. Watching 2 hours of video is 4 credits. And in this particular one, I realized I had what could almost be considered a cheat. And the cheat was I had to do 45 hours of continuing education for my real estate broker's license. Well, that right there is almost half of the credits that I need. Just the stuff I needed to do professionally, 45 hours for real estate, and then the hours that I did of watching the videos before I was willing to use them in church, just my professional obligations got me to the halfway mark. And so then the other stuff is just, I can do half an hour worth a day. And that ended up being really, really easy to catch up with. But that's something else. You can buy that way forward. You can catch way up. I mean, what if I got to day 80 and I haven't gotten to any of it? I could just crank them all out and just put something on and just listen, have it doing while I'm doing other stuff, and just start cranking out those credits. So you can catch up and you can get ahead. 14 books. I did 14 books. As a book week pace, sometimes I was ahead, sometimes I was behind, but it wasn't exactly 1 book every 7 days as the measure. the every 7-day check-in is to say, okay, how am I doing? Am I ahead? Am I behind? And sometimes if I was getting behind, I know, okay, I need a shorter book for my next one. I need an easier book for my next one, something I can get through so I can catch up. But there's no success or failure based on where I am. It was just 14 books in 100 days. And then 100 pages, plus pages of journal writing, that ended up being ridiculously easy. So that was Brain, and most of those I was buying ahead. By the time I finished the end of March, I was like 120 pages of journal writing. So I was already way ahead, even before I started April. Blessing, 100 Days of Communion. And now Communion was one of those things where there was no buy forward and no buy back. Because the whole purpose on this one was every single day to do Communion. And so this is one of those cases where it is an every single day thing. If I wasn't going to be around, I would take my juice and my cracker and my glass with me to make sure I had an opportunity to do it. And it doesn't take that long. I mean, you could do this in 60 seconds. So it's not like it's a huge time commitment. You don't have to be in a particular place. It doesn't have to be at a particular time. Just any time in this 24-hour window, at any place that I could find just, a few seconds, you can crank this thing out. And so there was no reason for me to have to build in the extra flexibility on that. And so I said, okay, every single day, Communion. And 100 Days of Prayer is on the list too. And that's another one. Could be anywhere. All you need is just a few seconds. If you just say, thank you, God, that counts as a prayer. What do you have to be to do something like that? Anywhere. How busy do you have to be to not have time to just say thank you? You have to be crazy busy. So that's something that could be put on every single day. Now, it ended up, I didn't need that magnitude of flexibility, but Communion 100 times in 100 days, every single day. Prayer 100 days out of 100 days. And then in between it has a read the Bible in 100 days. Now, this is really speed reading. And there's a list. And I have my list here. So this is a list of, if you're going to read the entire Bible in 100 days, this is a schedule. So we just found this online, printed it up. Sometimes I got ahead, sometimes I got behind, because this is a lot of reading. And so some days I was just so busy I didn't have time to do all of it. And so that was okay. I would give myself permission to catch up later. Some days I had more time and I'd get ahead. Now this is speed reading pace. This isn't steady reading pace. If you're going to sit down and you're going to read it out loud at this pace, you're devoting a significant amount of time. My goal on this was to get through the entire Bible, cover to cover, in 100 days or less, so that my brain gets to see the entire Bible kind of compressed in time. Because when I read my Bible over the course of an entire year, by the time you're rolling around in November, you really don't have a mental context for March anymore. But when you do it this fast, your brain hangs on to a context better. So that was that exercise. Nailed that one too. So that one was another one I gave myself a grade of an A. And then I had the goal of bucks. For part of my dollar-oriented things, I needed to learn WordPress, so I had to go online and learn WordPress. Build the QX site, so I worked on that. And so I got an A there, an A there, an A there. And my legal work, my focus was going in on stuff that was going to be paid work. And I gave myself a B on that because I still did get my time sucked off for some free stuff. And I still did invest in that. I did earn about $8,000 through legal work. Unfortunately, it all got sucked off into business expenses and stuff, but I generated the revenue. And so that helped bridge some expenses, because we had some significant expenses. I had $3,500 that was due coming into January that I had to catch up on. I had all my fees that were due for my legal and my brokers and my continuing education. And I did a whole bunch of stuff that was getting way behind, and the credit was gone. And so being able to generate that revenue kind of helped keep up with some of that and be able to catch up on some of those bills. So that worked out pretty good, but overall, gave myself a B on that one. And then my work on the Go Kicks Empowerment, gave myself a B on that. I did most of the stuff I needed to do, a lot of waiting on other things. Some stuff is going slower. Gave myself a grade of a B. My target, I had a financial target, didn't hit it, gave myself a grade of a B. Did pretty good though. I had some business goals to enroll more kid students. I gave myself a D on that one. because the kid students I have were for the second class and mostly for the 5 o'clock class. To enroll more adult students, I was aiming for 15 there, but I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 6 of them that at least came to try out the class there, and I gave myself a C on that. For speaking and teaching, we didn't get the schedule for ADU, but I did get scheduled to speak at EDM. And so ADU is supposed to come at sometime in May. I gave myself a C on that one. Upgrading my LinkedIn profile, harmonizing my website, Facebook page. I got a bunch of my materials together. I'm in a kind of a holding pattern because I'm waiting for some material that needs to come to me. I gave myself a C on that one. On books, Writing the Pain of Warriors, I got between a third and half of it done. I wanted to have a complete rough draft. I gave myself a C there. Editing for print my Karate, Jiu-Jitsu, and Kobu Jitsu books and finishing my Ohana program. Gave myself A's there. Got all that done. Going down to Balboa Park, it says a cursory visit to all 17 attractions. Determine what would make good dates. Getting out to the zoo at least once, the safari park at least once, and I actually did get to most of the museums in Balboa Park for a meaningful visit during the 100 days. So I gave myself an A there. And then I had a category called Beauty. And the beauty category was I put in my social life. And so putting in my social life into the plan, that one was done to make sure I remembered to go live my life. And so I had 7 or more dates with 7 or more women. And over the course of the 100 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I had 8 women that I went out with. So I got to 7 or more women. And I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 dates with 8 women. So I maintained my social life. I stayed out there. I went out with, and it's all just friendly stuff. I mean, nothing romantic is going on with any of these women. And some of them more dramatically not romantic than others. But I had to build in my life. And so I gave myself an A on that one. And some of that includes some significant dates. I mean, I was at Legoland all day with one of my lady friends. I've done some all-day things, twice the safari park with 2 different lady friends. And because it's all just friendly, there's no romantic overtones and overtures. Some of it is as simple a thing as just going for a walk across malls while we're visiting and chit-chatting. Even counts as having a dinner where really the topic of conversation is pretty much all business, but it's still a nice time to get together. And that doesn't include times where I'm going out with like a woman and her boyfriend, or I'm going out with a husband and the wife. And so that doesn't count as the date. It's only a date when it's just me and a lady. And so I went to the Cherry Blossom Festival with one of my young lady friends and her boyfriend, and the 3 of us had a good time there. And, you know, went out to a movie with one of my friends, both of them a married couple. And I went to go see a cool movie together and then went out to dinner. And so those don't even count as the dates, but it's maintaining my social life. Now, in maintaining my social life, when I get busy, here's one of the problems that I run into. I get so fixated sometimes on the things that I need to do for my list, I forget to do other stuff. Nowhere on my list did I have my television programs. You know, we figure that, well, those will just come up. I don't need to worry about those. Well, I ended up completely forgetting about all of them. And so I got to the end of the 100 days, and after I found, okay, now I get some of my time back. You know, I should catch up on my programs. And I watched them online. And when I went online, I found that they only keep the last 5. And on some of the things, I had missed an episode, or maybe 2. And I don't want to go back and pay for them. I just want to watch them for free. And so I realized, okay, well, I missed them in a couple of shows. Some of the shows, they had skipped some, so I was okay. I was able to catch up. But I ended up missing a few, which just tells me if I do a sprint like this again, if I want to stay current on certain shows, I need to put them in my list. Because if it's not on the list, there's a fairly reasonable chance I'm going to lose it. And in this case, I lost such an insignificant thing, fortunately, of losing just television programs. But I realized when I get busy, when I'm doing something that requires a lot of my attention, when I'm pushing my schedule hard, it's easy for me to miss things like television programs. It's easy for me to miss things like time with family. It'd be easy for me to miss things like a date night. It's easy to miss things like make sure I see my friends. And sometimes in my busier season, I have to put that in my schedule. I have to make that part of the plan. And if I do that, then I will remember that it gets done. And then I put in a list here of focus on more personally fulfilling relationships. I gave myself a B on that one. I've got some relationships that are getting a little bit more personally fulfilling to me, and I'm investing more in those. And I'm investing less in the relationships that aren't personally fulfilling to me. And so the more a relationship is kind of giving back at a level that fills me, the more I'm putting into it. And the more a relationship isn't putting in where it's filling me, the less I'm putting into it. And it's not, 100%, but on that one I gave myself a B. That I've got some places so that I am pursuing things forward in more fulfilling ways. In some places, not in all places, but I'm trying to make sure that I keep my tank filled and that I don't run myself dry. And then I had also on my list one major social event. Part of it was I was looking at going to the La Jolla Country Club for an event, but the person who was going to invite me found out he couldn't. And so I swapped that out for a Legoland visit with 2 different people in a couple of weeks' time. One of them had to cancel. But for major events, I did go to the Cherry Blossom Festival. And I booked myself for teaching at a seminar and for attending a seminar. And the seminar I'm attending isn't until next week. So I gave myself a B on that one. That I think I got out there enough, I attended things enough, bigger things, more meaningful things, and getting connected to more new people that way. So that's kind of my overall performance. I'm going to give myself an overall grade, probably a B plus, A minus. But that's the system building in is it didn't have to be perfect. That my goal going in was I wanted to do it at least a B level. And I built in the flexibility. I built in the testing phase. I built in the tinker time. So that way as I go in, it's sort of, well, let's start off with this and let's kind of see how it fits. Let's see how it goes. Let's see what I need to modify. Let's see how much flexibility I can reasonably build in. On communion and prayer, no need for flexibility there because the shortest version of a communion prayer time is less than 60 seconds. And it can literally be done anywhere that I take my juice and my wafer and my little cup. So there would be no reason I would have to build in flexibility to that one. And then, of course, as I said, it turned out I didn't need to build in the flexibility for that anyway, or even to take advantage of diminished time or alternate locations. I was able to do that in my regular time, regular place for a regular investment of my time on a consistent basis every single day. Some stuff you can buy forward. Some stuff you can buy back. When it's body stuff, about a day forward, about a day back is reasonable. Unless the plan is different. If my plan, say, is to work out 3 days a week, well, which 3 days? That if I can't make it, say if I'm going to do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, well, what if I can't make it on the Monday? Is it okay to do it on the Tuesday? If I know I'm not going to make it on Monday, is it okay to do it on the Sunday? Or if I can't make a day, am I just going to skip a day? Because when I say that a B performance is 80 to 90% compliance. So if I'm getting a B at something, that means that between 1 out of 10 up to 1 out of 5 times, I'm not getting it. And that I make that okay going in. That's part of the commitment, for it to not have to be perfect. Even an A-level performance, if I say some things like the communion prayer, that has to be perfect. 100 days, every single day. Some stuff, anything in the A range is fine. If I miss one day out of 3 weeks, that's still an A. That's better than 95%. And 95% is a solid A. And so you can build that in. I wish I'd built that into those 46 conditioning katas in 46 days. If I had just given myself permission to do 46 conditioning katas in 47 days, boy, that Disneyland day could have been a lot easier on my body. But I didn't build that in. So this is part of the trick of building it in. And then see how you did. And is an A minus a failure? No, it's an A minus. That's running about 90%. I got about 90% of what I was after. Is a B a failure? No, it's a B. That means I got somewhere between 80, 85, 90% of what my target was. Now, some of the stuff where I got a D, I gave myself a C. Okay, that probably really needs to be upgraded. I got some of it. Something kind of happened in that direction. Really didn't produce much in the way of results. The F for me is you just blew it. You just totally walked away from that one. You ran it backwards. You ended further back than what you began at on this goal you were after. That would be an F to me. And the self-sabotaging S usually is when there's not much in the way of compensation. And by compensation, it's not that like getting paid for it, compensation. It's that you didn't do something to offset that, to balance the scales the other way. Where if I've done something that really blew it somewhere, what did I do to offset where I blew it? If part of my thing had to do with a workout, what did I do to offset that workout? What did I do in place of, instead of, to kind of at least redeem a little bit of it? And then in certain places, like in a relationship, what did I do to make up for it? In financial stuff, if I ended up getting behind because something happened with my car, that okay, well now I'm hundreds of dollars behind. What did you do to make up that money? And maybe you make up all of it, maybe you don't make up all of it. But did you at least try? So say if I had a goal to get this dollar amount and pay down my debt, and it had been more debt because I had to put something on my credit card. Well, that might be an F because I'm going backwards. But why would that fail? Well, if that failed because I just spent the money. Okay, that's an F. Well, something happened and there was an emergency. My car needed to be fixed. Okay, well that might not be an F failure. I might be in more debt than I was when I started. But if the reason was good and wasn't already part of the plan, I might still give myself a D, even though I'm further behind, because there was a reason I'm further behind. And if I end up further behind for a really, really good reason, I might still give myself a C. If I did my work, but I ended up further behind. Someone didn't pay me. There was an emergency that involved a key relationship, and it had to be done. Now I might still give myself a C, even though I end up further behind. So be reasonably generous with yourself. Don't give yourself straight A's when you didn't hit your marks. The A level is for when you hit or almost hit your mark, 90% or more there. The B's, now you're back from your mark. There's definitely room for improvement there. But you did pretty good. You got a significant chunk of the way there. The C is like, you gave it a shot. The D is, did you give it a shot? Did you do that and really seriously? The F is, what the heck? And that's where the failure is. And part of the model for that is the way we do the martial arts, where you pass now or you pass later. And the only way to really fail is if you blow it. Not if you have trouble with it. If you decide you're not going to do it. If you cop an attitude about it. If you're mean to yourself about it. If you refuse to give it another shot, that's enough. That's how you fail. But you don't fail from doing your best. You don't fail from giving it a try. All you do is you find out, I passed this stuff now, I still have to work to pass that other stuff. And sometimes what ends up happening is the thing that students fail at on their initial test, sometimes they just barely eke it by because it's hard for them. Something in the brain and the body just doesn't want to do it. But also sometimes that ends up being one of the best things. I had one kid in particular, Kata, Guardian 1. He totally blew that on his test. It was the only thing he blew on his test. He had his makeup test 1 week later. He drilled that form again and again and again. It ended up being his best thing because he drilled it so many times. The thing he failed a week before, he blew away a week later, and he had drilled it so many times that he was inspired so much in it that now it's his best thing. It's amazing to watch how failure led him to such a higher level of success. And we see that pattern a lot. That then the next test comes up and says, oh, I barely made this last time. I got to really drill this stuff. I have to really work on this because I know last time this was an issue. And it gets extra attention. It gets extra work. And all of this is built into the 100-day sprint ideals. And we talked about it going in and building in your flexibility. I built in flexibility. Give yourself permission to not be perfect. I gave myself permission to not be perfect. I gave myself permission to do it at a B level, especially on some of the things. Some of the stuff, no flexibility. Some of the stuff, some flexibility. Some of the stuff, lots of flexibility. Some stuff I could buy 1 day forward, 1 day back. Other stuff, I could buy a week forward If I could have sat down and read my entire Bible in one dedicated weekend, I could have bought the whole 100 days over a weekend. It's not what I did, but I gave myself permission to do that. Or the same thing in reverse. If I'm getting behind, if there's just so much reading that I'm really kind of only getting to maybe half of it, and I'm getting down to the last few weeks and I'm way behind, I totally had permission to just take a day and catch up. And that would have been okay with that. AV credit, same thing. So and my book reading, same thing. If I could crank out 14 books in 1 week, because I was doing nothing but books, that would have been okay. And I could have done, if I'm only 5 books in and I need to do 9 books and I only have a week and a half to do it, that would be okay. That might not be a really good job, but it was built in for that to be okay. Some things are just, here's the window. By the end of the window, it just needs to be done. Some of the stuff, every single day. Some of the stuff, little bit of flexibility, 1 or 2 days. Some of the stuff you go up to a week ahead, a week behind, whatever it was. Some of the stuff, here's the threshold. Once you cross this threshold, you're done, like I did with Pyre. That wasn't part of my ongoing routine the whole time. Once I was done with Pyre, I was able to upgrade some other stuff because my body wasn't worn out from that and move forward from there. And so it's how do you build it? How do you structure it so you can win? What commitments do you make so you know you can keep them? And a few big things on keeping commitments is be aware of how you're talking about things. Be aware of what you're communicating. Be aware of how you're evaluating. Not just for what you sound like to other people. Because, I mean, that is an issue. If I say, I'm doing this. And you think, yeah, right. Scott always says he's doing stuff. And let's watch. Yep, there we go. 2.5 weeks later, he's not doing it anymore. Then other people are learning to not trust me. But the bigger issue is I'm learning to not trust me. I'm learning that my words don't mean what my words are. And if I already know this about me, that I might get 2 or 3 weeks in and give it up, then I don't call it a 100-day commitment. I call it a check. I'm going to check. I'm going to try this and check to see if this works for me. Well, then if I'm checking to see if it works for me, and in 2 or 3 weeks I decide, no, this isn't working for me, then what I'm doing matches my commitment. That my later actions square up with the words that I use to describe it. That when I said this, I did this. It's not that I said this and then I did that. And by phrasing your commitments better, by phrasing your goals and your plans better, by saying what you're going to do and how you're going to do it better, you create better integrity, and you are a better oasis for other people. Because if I say I'm going to do something and then I don't do it, and then later on you're counting on me and I've said I'm going to do it, do you know I'm going to do it? You don't know what's going to get done. And sometimes people get so caught up because, like, well, I don't want my boss to be mad at me, and so I'm going to tell him I'm going to do it, because if I don't tell him I'm going to do it, I'm going to get chewed out. But then you don't really know if you can do it, or you forget. And you might even know that you're prone to forgetting, but you're so caught up in the moment because you don't want to get chewed out by your boss that you just try to avoid getting chewed out. And when you have a boss that does stuff like that to you, it's really easy that the emotion takes over and emotion goes up until it goes down, and you don't even remember what you just agreed to. And I just watched a married couple do this where the husband specifically acknowledged what the wife said, and then promptly didn't do it. Because he really didn't hear her. He didn't hear the content of what she said. What he heard was she was talking. His acknowledgement was, I heard you were talking. That's what was in his head. I heard she was talking. I didn't really hear what she said. Now, she thought his acknowledgement meant you heard what I said. But he didn't hear what she said. And so that created an issue, right in front of me, too. Fortunately, because I was there, it like slowed down, and because they don't want to do this in front of other people, and they were able to slow down and say, "Did you hear what I said?" So, well, no, actually, I didn't. What did you say? So, why did you acknowledge? Well, I wanted you to know that I heard you talking. And so, the escalator is like, okay, hang on a second. Don't tell me okay if it's not okay. And so the short version of the strategy is reflect back to me what I said. So when she says something and he says okay, and she says, what are you saying okay to? And if he reflects back the content of what she said, then he goes, okay, you heard what I said. If he says, oh, that, you know, I understand that you're talking. It's like, okay, so I need you to get this content. This time the content is important. Not just your presence listening, I need you to hear the content. And so they were able to make some of that shift. So this is part of my 100-day sprint. How did I do? I did pretty good in some things, really good in some things, okay in other things, and really not all that great in some. And that's okay with me. That it's not a 100% or I'm a loser game. I was aiming for a B, got about a B minus, or A plus B, or B plus A minus. I got almost all of my goals at the level I wanted them to be, or nearly at the level I wanted them to be. I made substantial progress over where things were before. I would call it a win. Not as big a win as I might have liked, but a pretty solid win. And that was my 100-day sprint. Not everything made it. Most things did okay. A few things really fell flat. And that's okay with me, because that matches up with the commitments I made when I started and how I phrased what I was going to do. So that's it. Hopefully that helps you in your planning and your commitments and your choice of words as you move things forward yourself. This is Scott Conway, and thank you very much.